In 1994, the classic Mega Man series on the NES was concluded and would be moving on to the 16-bit generation the following year with Mega Man 7, and the spin-off series Mega Man X had already launched on the SNES a year earlier. But the classic series would get one more 8-bit installment with the Game Boy version of Mega Man 5. As you would expect, you play as Mega Man going through 8 Robot Masters in the order of your choosing in batches of 4 at a time, acquiring their special weapons, and then moving on to the Fortress stages to finish the game. But there is a slight tweak thrown in where instead of facing off against 8 Robot Masters with a variety of themes, this time you're up against alien robots called Star Droids, who each govern a different planet, plus Pluto, which was still considered a planet at the time. These Star Droids are led by Terra, another robot who is trying to start an intergalactic robot revolution. Terra sneak attacks Mega Man, who can't do shit with his Mega Buster, which prompts him to get the new Mega Arm, which replaces the Mega Buster, but isn't inherently different from it either. You still charge it up and fire off a shot, which doesn't have the full distance of the Mega Buster, but it does come back to you and can do some damage on the way back. Also, something that hasn't changed much despite its tweaks is the game itself. Yeah, it freshens things up with the Star Droid storyline at the expense of seeing Game Boy versions of familiar faces, but other than that, it's pretty much your standard fare, tried and true Mega Man game. You do get some other enhancements like Tango the Cat, who effectively replaces Beat as an automated attack everything on screen power-up, plus you still get Rush Coil and Rush Jet upon defeating certain Star Droids. This whole Star Droid thing, I honestly found to be a bit weird at first glance, but I get it. And the themes for the planets are fitting for the most part, like Neptune is water-themed and Mars is war-themed with the missile weapons, etc. My only gripe here is that, since Earth isn't a stage, the 3 terrestrial planets in the first batch of levels, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, are joined by Neptune, which is not only one of the non-terrestrial gas giants, but it's also on the other side of the fucking solar system. Why not just have all 8 stages available from the get-go? I've always preferred this method over the 4 at a time bullshit, especially when you're playing mix and match with the alignment. Like in Mega Man 4, you get chips that can be used in Dr. Light's lab to purchase power-ups and special items like extra E-tanks, W-tanks for your weapons, extra lives, an energy balancer that automatically refills the lowest weapon upon picking up a weapon capsule, upgrades for your Mega Arm, and a power generator that cuts down your usage of weapon energy. And while the game's plot isn't super deep, and the villain twist is more predictable than an Imagine Dragons song, the story is still presented well, and like its predecessor, the human side of the robots is showcased. The soundtrack is, it's not as bad as Mega Man 2 on Game Boy, not by a damn sight, but it does have some of the vibes of that game's soundtrack, with better production quality by a mile. You're not getting screeching and distorted noises trying to make a melody, but the compositions themselves have a similar approach. Mega Man 5 isn't going to win over a whole new batch of fans. It's pretty much there for the pre-existing Mega Man fan who enjoys the formula, but with something new sprinkled in with the Star Droids and whatnot. Also, a quick side note regarding the footage of this walkthrough in certain spots. So for whatever reason, every ROM that I could possibly get my hands on for Mega Man 5 always crashed out when you selected a certain Star Droids when you hadn't defeated them yet. So I kind of had to cheese my way around it and re-enter the stages, but I couldn't get footage of fighting these Star Droids because I couldn't select them while they were still active. So in some spots, you'll see me fighting these Star Droids in the rematch room later on in the game, as opposed to in the stage when you normally would. So the game starts out with a cutscene of a mysterious object heading toward Earth, and while Mega Man and Roll are out for a stroll, the object reveals itself to be Terra, who talks some smack to Mega Man, whose Mega Buster does fuck all against him, and Terra knocks him out. The planet is now under attack, Dr. Light gives Mega Man the refurbished Mega Arm, and it's off to face the Star Droids. Now, like in all the other Mega Mans, you can pick any order that you like, but for the purposes of the walkthrough, I would suggest picking Mercury first. These birds will flutter around and fire off 2 split projectiles. Weave your way between them if you can't kill him before he fires it. Then let these boxes fall onto the conveyor belts before you proceed. You don't want to get smashed by them. This guy will spit out a chunk of trash that'll break off into 4 pieces after you shoot it. Keep enough distance so you don't get tagged and blast him to hell. When you drop down here, veer off to the right so you can keep away from the bird and collect all the chips. Then slip down and stay in the middle this time to avoid the spikes. Keep your distance when shooting at this guy with the saw, because it'll separate from him and run across the floor. Jump over it. Stay low to the ground when fighting this robot, because he could reappear right where you jump. Instead, slide to get some distance and take him out. This guy will smash rocks that drop down from above, so stay between them when you're below, and don't get too close when they're right in front of you. This guy sends a series of rocks in multiple directions. Keep your distance to make it easier to slip between them as you wipe them out. When you get here, there'll be 3 chips and an E-tank, but the spikes make this dangerous because you'll naturally bounce back up before you reach the end and you'll die. So what you need to do is slide and jump right as you're in the safe zone to cancel out the slide. Pick up your shit and move on. When you drop down here, hug the wall so you don't land in any spikes, and the gate leading to Mercury is right after. He'll send out 3 ninja stars in multiple directions, which make up his grab buster. This weapon can steal weapon energy from you as well as chips and tanks, so don't let this happen, even though you don't have any weapon energy to worry about at the moment. Fire at him, keep your distance to let the overhead stars pass, and jump over the one that fires straight ahead. He'll turn into a blob that splits off into multiple pieces and shifts to the other side of the room. He does this in 2 different patterns. From right to left, the blobs will bounce, so you want to jump over these or slide under. And then from left to right, they'll scatter across the floor before merging as one. So jump into the safe zone and then make your way back to the other side. He's invulnerable when in this blob form, so give him all you got when he's firing at you. Be patient, and you'll eventually take him out and get the grab buster, which will grab energy pellets off of enemies. Before I continue, I'll make quick mention of the Dr. Light Lab, which you can visit between stages at your leisure. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll grab P-chips along your travels to use as currency in the lab to buy power-ups. There's no real way to determine how much money you should have from level to level, considering how they get randomly dropped by enemies, and you might get more if you die a lot or if you just want to go back and farm up for some more chips. And none of these items are necessary to finish the game, but they help. So grab the items you might want at your discretion, but I would recommend having E-tank stocked up for the fortress levels because it's use it or lose it at that point. Anyway, up next go with Neptune. These cannons that fire off a projectile at a time will shield themselves underground and pop up once in a while. That's when you want to fire. Then you'll run into this helicopter, maneuver between the bullets, and make your way to the other side of the screen to attack from a distance. Soon after, you'll drop underground and you'll hit some streams. Keep your feet moving and don't let it wash you into a pit. Also, if you hit the corners of some of these pipes, it'll create a whole new stream you don't need to deal with, so watch your aim. Then you've got some leaks in the pipes that let out steam. Simply wait for them to clear momentarily before passing, similar to Waveman's stage on the NES version. When climbing this ladder, wait for the steam to clear, and then once you get enough height, drop down and hug the wall to get the extra life and energy capsule. Then you'll end up back in the water and you'll have to jump between all the spikes. Be careful and take your time, and the gate to Neptune is just ahead. He'll hop around back and forth, let him pass over you and dodge his saltwater blobs, and then maneuver your way between the ones that fall from the ceiling. Watch them and position yourself accordingly. You don't have to worry about Neptune moving around during this. Just concentrate on keeping yourself out of harm's way and spam him with your grab buster. After finishing him off, you'll get the saltwater weapon, which are another form of the blobs that rained on you. You'll fire off a large blob that'll split off into multiple smaller blobs upon contact. Now on to Mars. The switches that blend in with the ground will trigger an explosion after a couple seconds, so be wary of these things, and you should be fine anyway as long as you're always on the move. Then you'll come across a robot monkey that hops around and throws bananas at you. Stay back to avoid his attacks and move in for the kill. Then these hydraulic platforms will take off into the ceiling, trying to squish you into the spikes. Don't let them carry you for too long. These two rooms have some P-chips you'll need the rush coil for, so if you want them, you'll have to come back later. Then you'll reach a mini-boss with a pit between you. Hop on the platforms that drop down to scale your way up so you can blast him. Just make sure you wait for the opening. He'll send a deadly bouncy ball your way. Let it pass over you first, then get to higher ground and let him have it. There'll be an E-tank up here you'll need the coil for later on. Keep it in mind if you want to come back. And when you drop down this open area, watch the edges and dead center so you don't land on any of the spikes. And use the same slide technique as earlier when you get here to get between the spikes and grab the E-tank. You'll run into a rematch with this mini-boss, and soon after that is the gate to Mars. He'll fire his photon missiles, followed by smaller projectiles that come flying out like crazy. You're better off shooting these down with your mega arm, and then unloading on him with the salt water after, or just spam him with the salt water altogether. After taking him out, you'll get the photon missile, which flies across the screen and does some damage, but it does have a delayed launch. Last but not least, in this initial batch is Venus. These globs that hang from the ceiling are mostly just decor, but if you look closely, there's a noticeable difference in opacity between some of them, and the ones that are more visible will drop down and hop around to try to climb onto you. Shoot them down right away. Then you'll deal with these crabs that send bubbles your way. Fire rapidly if you get caught in it. You don't want to be sent over the edge, and pump him full of lead. He just stands in one place. These waterfalls will push you down and wash you through whatever platforms they overlap, essentially creating a pit. So watch out for the water droplet to clue you in on where they'll show up, and let them pass before moving on. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Then you'll deal with these owls with airman fans built into them. Stay back so you don't get sucked into the spikes and shoot them down. On this climb, stand over to the side and let the waterfalls drop as you blast the enemies in these rooms before climbing up to the next one, and you'll get something from Eddie. Down the home stretch, you'll come across this floor of bubbles. If you jump off one of the big ones, you'll get a long jump, and so naturally the small ones will barely get you off the ground. So use the appropriate bubbles to get over these spikes. Be careful along this long line of waterfalls, and the gate to Venus is soon after. Equip the photon missiles, slide under him as he hops across the screen, and avoid the bubble bomb he sends down from above. Send off the photon missile a little early as he's coming back down. Remember, this weapon has the delayed send-off. After dealing enough shots, you'll take him down and obtain the bubble bomb, which sends a bubble into an upward floating pattern and detonates upon contact. You'll also get the rush coil, so if you want to go back and grab those E-tanks and P-chips you couldn't get to earlier, have at it. Now you have a battle with Terra, although you don't actually fight him. He talks some trash and then sends Dark Moon after you, who is really just an alternate version of the Yellow Devil rock monster from earlier installments. Jump over and slide under the rocks that start building up from the left. Thankfully, they don't travel too fast, so you should be able to react without any huge problems. Once built, he fires off a string of projectiles. Stand back and let him have the photon missile into the eye. Per tradition, after a short time, it'll start building again from the opposite side. Stand here so that the ones that bounce will bounce over you, and react to the rest of them as necessary. It sucks having to dodge all this shit and wait before you can attack anything, but that's the nature of the Yellow Devil fights. The good news is he rebuilds off screen, so you can have more distance than you usually do, not to mention the toned down speed of the reforming pieces. After finishing him off, you'll move on to Dr. Light's lab, where you'll learn that the star droids are using their gathered resources from Earth to prepare an attack from outer space. And while you're in the lab, you'll be given the option to buy stuff. So Rush gets upgraded to fly out into space, and you set off to do battle with the next batch of 4 robot masters, star droids. First, go with Pluto. This guy lays low and shields himself while firing an arc pattern attack. You'll need a charged Mega Arm shot to move the shield for a split second to land hits, or get up close, which inevitably causes damage. The more practical option is the salt water, which will overcome the shield. When you drop down, get off this platform immediately because it drops after contact, and the same thing for these tiny platforms, so any surface with this pattern to it. Keep this whole thing in mind, including soon after where you've got a line of them over a pit with a spiked ceiling to scare you out of jumping. Then you'll fight a mini-boss, this drill that'll dig through the ceiling and floor, going back and forth between the two, spraying rocks everywhere. The easy part is keeping your distance and firing, but the trickier part is getting blindsided when he returns. So slide around so you can be on the move more quickly, and charge up your shot while you're waiting. After taking him out, the wall blows up and you can move on to a 2-ladder fork in the road. Take the left one so you can stand on here and deal with this asshole easier. Just remember this block down here by the ladder is for later. This platform above you will drop, so move quickly to get away from it, and keep your eyes above you for the rest of the falling bullshit. You'll have a rematch with the Digger guy, and then you'll run into Proto Man, who gives you an item, although unlike Eddie, he might give you an S energy ball that completely fills all your health and weapon energy. Right after that is the gate to Pluto. He'll fire a few shots, jump over them and Pluto himself when he dashes across the floor, and then get to the side when he bounces off the walls to the ceiling where he'll send some orbs your way, which you'll need to dodge. When he's on the ground, use the grab buster, evade his attacks, and when you finish him off, you'll get the break dash, which is the simple dash move that he was pulling off. Now go to Uranus. I'm not even going to try to make any jokes here, it's too obvious. When you drop down here, use the rush to get up here and use the break dash to get through these bricks for an E-tank. Then you'll do battle with this mini-boss, where this thing will fire off a rock slab while another rock slab will drop from one of 5 different slots up top. Use the slab that swings out in your direction as a platform to get up higher and reach the face of this prick. Just watch your positioning, because you're being shifted all around in an effort to send you into the spikes below. So try to stay as centered as possible, and keep your eyes on the slabs, mainly the one above you because it'll be a threat to you more often. When you get into these rooms, use the platforms that come out of the walls as a boost to get up top, and you'll get something from Eddie. These seals will balance a bullet or whatever on their nose and then fire it off in your direction. Be conscientious of it, it's rather quick. Then use the coil to get up here and dash through for a crystal. When you get here, don't bother with this P-chip and extra life unless you're super confident in your ability to jump out of it. This is like the trap in Wily Stage way back in the original Mega Man. Use the coil to get up here and slide under for an E-tank, and then drop down these platforms. Just watch the walls and the floor. You need to center off to enter the gap. And then you've got a rematch with this thing again, except this time there's less platform to maneuver around. Shortly after, Uranus awaits. He'll stomp the ground, causing it to shake, and then digs for a block and tosses it at you. If you're on the ground when he lands, you'll fall to the ground and become temporarily useless, similar to the Gutsman fight back in Mega Man 1. Get closer to him, especially when he stomps and causes the cave-in on the other side of the room, which is insta-death. Plus his weakness is the break dash, so you'll want to be in his general area for the most part anyway. When you finish him, you'll get the Deep Digger, which allows you to pick up these blocks on the floor and send them away to an enemy. Yeah, it's also similar to Gutsman, but it is what it is. You'll bring the crystal to Dr. Light, who says he can make an item to cut your energy usage on your weapons by half if you can find another 3 crystals. Next up is Jupiter. Even though you've been to planets of different amounts of gravitational pull, now you're outside, so now you can get more height on your jumps. Let this robot fire off his electric wave before firing at him. Your attacks are useless otherwise, and you don't want to get knocked into the pits. These floating magnet fucks will drop these electrical charges and glide across the floor. Be ready to jump over them and watch out for their rebound. Then you'll get back inside, and the regular gravity is back. These machines will gather up a charge and fire balls of electricity at you from above. Weave your way between the attacks and give him a charged up shot when he comes back down. Then you're back outside again. Get used to this back and forth bullshit, and be sure to wipe this guy out before taking the long leap to the other side. These items all look like they're inaccessible, but if you use the deep digger, you can nab them. Just be mindful to refill, cause you're gonna want this weapon at the boss fight. This little guy will drop its hammer down, spewing debris in multiple directions. Keep your distance so you don't get hit with anything, and blast him. You'll then get to an extra life and an E-tank on either side of this ladder, which you'll need to climb up and dig through these blocks above to access them. When you go back down the ladder you came through, this bridge will be up, and if you slip down here into this gap in the wall, you can dig through these blocks for another crystal. Not long after that is the gate to Jupiter. He'll fly to the ceiling and send a surge of electric shock straight down that affects the nearby area. Keep your distance, avoid his spread shot attack from up here, slide across to evade him when he swoops down, and give him some bubble bombs, which conveniently gravitate upwards, making it a lot easier to connect with him. Keep this up until he's destroyed, and you'll get the electric shock, a short-range surge of electricity. Last star droid, Saturn. Slide down here, and if you have the magic hand upgrade for your mega arm, you can grab these items out of the wall. If you look in the background, you'll see arrows pointing up or down with number indicators. This tells you the force of the gravity, so this 0.5G I think means that the gravity is cut in half and allows you to jump higher, whereas this 2G means it's twice the gravity and holds you down. You need to go down this way to continue on, but if you leap over it, head into this gap and dig through the blocks. You'll get another crystal. When you drop down, veer to the side so you don't drop into the spikes, and only go for these chips if you have the magic hand. Be mindful of the gravity adjustments you have to make, specifically around the pits. Make sure you get good jumps. Watch out for the spikes on the ceiling when you take the long jumps, and use the deep digger to get the extra life in here. You'll then get a prize from Eddie, and then this dinglehopper will try to poke you from above. Wait for him to jump down before you try anything on him, otherwise wait for an opening. The home stretch has another line of gravity bumps, and the gate to Saturn is right after. He'll toss a ring high into the air and slide. He's like a combination of Ring Man and Shadow Man. Then he'll freeze himself in midair and fire off a string of shots in all directions. Head left to stay behind it, and then head to the right so it doesn't reach you. Jump over him while staying under the rings, get to the opposite side, and fire the electric shock into his face. It won't take long to finish him off, and you'll get the black hole from him, which hovers over you and sucks enemies in, and then can be fired off in multiple directions, plus you'll get the rush jet. Now you can take on Terra, or you can go back to Pluto stage to get the last crystal, or any of the other stages to farm up on chips. The block I told you about earlier at the double ladder fork, use the deep digger to go down, watch out for the falling platforms, and the crystal will be at the bottom. If you get all 4 crystals, go to the lab and get the power generator, which cuts down the usage of weapon energy in half. Anyway, on to Terra, who of course is pissed off that you wiped out all the star droids, and now it's his turn. This time he doesn't sick a yellow devil or some shit on you, it's one-on-one. He'll send this triangle of rotating balls towards you, jump over it cause it'll freeze you upon contact, and then follows it up with the Spark Chaser, which is a heat-seeking laser weapon. You don't want to be frozen and defenseless when he fires this. Let him have it by chucking blocks at him using the deep digger, and after finishing him off, Dr. Wily's Death Star will emerge in the background. Mega Man is dumbfounded by this revelation for some reason, and he hops onto Rush and takes off after Wily. The first stage has you flying Rush through space. You can't use any of your weapons or items, just the regular gun. Most of the stage consists of dodging asteroids. Some are faster than others, so be aware and react accordingly. And shoot down these little pricks when they show up. Remember that you can't turn Rush around horizontally and shoot anything behind you, you're always facing the right side. So if you get caught up, you have to reposition yourself. You'll then get attacked by a giant laser. It'll shoot up top, then the bottom, and then the top again, then bottom again, and finally in the middle. Then you'll meet up with the boss, this massive machine which is so big it actually shrinks your sprite down. Stay off level with the skull's mouth until it fires off its laser, then get in and fire. You have a limited amount of time while it's open. Shoot down the missiles and dodge the bullets in between the laser attacks, and continue the process until it's destroyed. Mega Man flies inside, and now it's on to the traditional platform stages. You'll deal with enemies you've seen before, like the electricity guys, the buzzsaw pricks, and these bubble crabs. When you get here at the first drop, use the deep digger to get through these blocks, and then the break dash to get through here, and you'll bypass a chunk of the stage that you don't really need to go through, unless you want to get an item from Eddie and a weapon energy capsule. Use the deep digger or the magic hand to get the extra lives hidden in here, and you'll reach the gate that leads to a rematch with Anchor from the original Game Boy version of Mega Man. Similar to the fight from back in the day, he'll hop from one side of the screen to the other, raise his sword, gathering up energy, and then fire it all off at you in a wave. Jump over it. Also, like in the previous battle, only your default Mega Buster, or in this case Mega Arm, can hurt him. So spam the shit out of him with it, especially when he's got his sword raised, and you'll finish him off and get an energy refill. Then when you drop down, use the jet to get across so you can reach this platform, hug the wall, and dash through the blocks to find Proto Man, who tosses you an item. And then jump to the opposite side and hug the wall, where you'll need to use the deep digger to get into here for an extra life. After some more electricity dudes, you've got a rematch with Quint from the Game Boy version of Mega Man 2, so you're starting to see the pattern here. Like in Mega Man 2, he just drills into the ground, sending debris around, but as long as you keep your distance, you can easily blast him, and when he tries to land on you, just evade him. He's weak to the photon missile, but you can just use the Mega Arm to save your weapon energy if you want. After defeating him and getting an energy capsule, continue on, watch out for the dropping platforms, and then you've got a fork in the road. You can dash through the wall here, and then you've got some optional goodies you can risk grabbing because they're right on the edge of some spikes, so be careful if you engage. The other option is to deep dig down these blocks to take the alternate path, which is a little bit longer, but it does include the same 2 power-ups and the shortcut. Then you've got some more falling platforms and a battle with Punk from Mega Man 3. He'll roll up into a buzzsaw and roll across the room, either low where you'll have to jump him, or up high where you'll want to slide. Use the salt water while he's on the opposite side tossing these flame balls at you, and you'll once again get an energy capsule after finishing him off. On the way down here, watch the spikes that shift back and forth. Use the platforms that shift as a safe landing spot before continuing. Soon after is another gate, and now you face Belade from Mega Man 4, completing the quadfecta of rematches from the previous 4 games, and pretty much suggesting that they knew this was going to be the swan song of the Game Boy Mega Man games. He'll mostly hop around, dash across the room, and fire off his attack. Keep your distance when he's on the move, and spam attack your bubble bombs on him, although you'll want to be closer to him when you attack. After finishing him off, grab the capsule, and if you need some more health, do the same routine as earlier by sending Rush across the room and dashing through the wall for an energy capsule being guarded by the Slinky. And on the other side is another one after you use the digger to clear the block out of the way, although I can't imagine you'd still need health at this point. Continue downward, use the moving platform to avoid the spikes, and hug the right side wall, dash through the blocks, and Proto Man will gift you another item. After that, you'll hit up a teleporter, and you're in the Robot Master rematch room, or Star Droids in this case, whatever. Use the same strategies for defeating each of the Star Droids the same way you fought them before, and the order of which you face them should depend on your personal preference. Fight easier bosses, or at least the ones you expect to take the least amount of damage from when your health is lower, because you'll get a refill after killing off each of them. Here's a little cheat sheet on the locations of them all. After taking out all 8, you'll get access to a long stretch where you'll get some power-ups, mostly weapon refills, but there's also some health and an E-tank, and then Proto Man will give you an item too before you step up against a fist. It'll shift back and forth, stop momentarily, and then drop. Get away from it and fire the salt water at its eyes after it lands. Not much else to this pattern, just keep this going until it's destroyed, but of course there's another form, which is also a fist. This time though, it'll come down and fire off a missile while creeping around trying to grab a hold of you. Shoot the missile and slide to get away from it. Continue going for the eyes, and after finishing it off, you're not done yet. The machine that these fists were presumably attached to still stands. They'll send off 3 bombs that float above and then come down at you. Try to maneuver your way between them, and then this guy will come out and it activates the anti-gravity and you float upwards. Shooting him disengages it momentarily, but you have to wipe him out to clear it completely. Don't let it send you to the spikes up top or it's insta-death. So get this guy off the map right away. Then finally he sends a walking bomb your way. Don't let it touch you, and shoot it to knock it back into the machine so when it blows up, the damage will be done to it. And that's the only way to deal off damage to this thing. Watch for the timestamp on the bomb so you can time your attacks to coincide with the explosion. Hitting it too early might result in it getting away, and different bombs will have different lifespans. After finishing it off, are you fucking kidding me? Another one? There's almost no vertical room with the spikes now right there, and you have to jump because Wily's attacks are straight across the floor. Thankfully that's all he does, so just make little tiny hops and send the Spark Chaser his way. Keep this going until you finish him off, and he fucking gets away. What the hell? He summons another weapon named Sunstar. Wily unleashes him on you, but Sunstar actually turns on Wily, sending his ship into the ground. But you still have to fight Sunstar, of course. He'll fire these shots across the ground that fire straight back up after stopping. Hop over them, hit him with the Spark Chaser, and as he charges up this laser shot, jump over the laser and him, because he dashes forward. After taking about a third of his energy out, he'll change up tactics and locations as he destroys the floor. Here he'll send some slower moving projectiles. Jump over them and keep the Spark Chaser coming. It's actually much easier dealing with this phase. But it's not the last one, because he melts the floor after another third of his energy is depleted, and now he'll do a routine where he rolls across the room 3 times in one fell swoop. Stay at the far end so you can get over 2 of these rolls at once, and then again for the 3rd. And keep attacking with the Spark Chaser when he's in between attacks. When he's down to his last couple hit points, he concedes the battle, and Mega Man offers to take him back to Dr. Light's lab to fix him up. But he's about to self-destruct and take the whole place down with him. So Mega Man reluctantly leaves him behind, escaping with Rush at the last minute, a very similar ending to Mega Man 4. Mega Man ponders all this bullshit out in the field as the cast of characters gets a run through, and then Wily shows up, threatening Mega Man yet again, but his ship is too far gone, and he begs for mercy before running off, leaving Mega Man to chase him off screen. That wraps up the game. That wraps up the Game Boy series of Mega Man games, and it wraps up this edition of AqualungGameReviews. See you next time.